Hare Krishna. So Krishna is talking about happiness. He has spoken happiness in the mode of goodness. Now he's going to highlight the characteristics of the happiness in the mode of passion. So let's see this concept in Shloka number 38. Vishayendriya samyoga yattad agre amritopamam pariname visham iva tat sukham raja samsmritam. So here Krishna is saying that tat sukham, that happiness, which is derived from what? Vishaya indriya samyogat. That is, from the contact of senses, indriya, and sense objects. Vishaya. And then what is the other thing that is there in this happiness in the mode of passion? Agre amritopamam. Agre amritopamam. So initially, in the beginning, it's like nectar. And pariname, towards the end, visham iva. It is like poison. Tatsukham raja samsmritam. And such happiness is termed as happiness in the mode of passion. So in the mode of goodness, we had this peculiar characteristic, that is, that happiness initially, it might feel like poison, but towards the end, it's nectar. But now in the mode of passion, initially it's like nectar, and towards the end, as it proceeds, it becomes poisonous. So let's dive deep into this wonderful concept and understand what is this happiness in the mode of passion. A young man and a young woman meet, and the senses drive the young man to see her, to touch her, and to have sexual intercourse. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but at the end or after some time, it becomes just like poison. They are separated, or there is divorce, there is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. Such happiness is always in the mode of passion. So whenever we say passion, mode of passion, lust is one of the characteristics. Now here, as it is said, that when the senses and sense object come in touch, and the happiness that is given, that flickering happiness that is given at that moment, that happiness is in the mode of passion. So when a man and woman come together to unite outside the jurisdiction of marriage, it will be very nice, the premarital affair, extramarital affair and all that, it will be very nice to come together and to enjoy the bodily pleasure. But then the same enjoyment which was nectarian becomes poisonous, because it will spoil one's consciousness and not allow the person to advance in bhakti, advance in Krishna consciousness. Because any illicit sex will lead to impurity or spoils our purity, to be more specific. So purity has to be maintained, and this will spoil one's purity. And as Prabhupada says, purity is the force. Purity is the force in Krishna consciousness, and purity is only disturbed and contaminated, then how a person will advance. And even in the boundaries of marriage, the husband and wife, they come together to beget a Krishna conscious child. When that is not the motive, and the motive is something else, that is to enjoy or to gratify one's own senses, it will lead to a lot of misery. Initially it will be very nice maybe, but then with time, the person will get bored of the partner. They'll get separated, they'll get divorced, and there will be so many different problems that will come, which will lead to sorrow, which will lead to misery, lamentation. Initially, the same thing that was giving pleasure, later on, the same thing will give misery. So this is a very important point to note. Both in the boundaries of marriage and outside the boundaries of marriage, it all depends on the mood of the person. Both the spouses, why they're coming together, in what mood, and what are they expecting out of it. Here it is said, happiness derived from a combination of the senses and the sense objects is always a cause of distress and should be avoided by all means. See, in the mode of passion, happiness is all about instant happiness. Like instant food, instant happiness which is derived in various other places, maybe playing games or maybe watching a movie or whatever. So anything that gives instant happiness, immediately, we have to understand that happiness is in the mode of passion. And the same thing, the instant happiness that we have got will create a lot of trouble in future. And the same happiness which was nectarian will become poisonous towards the end. Like for example, the instant food, say, or intoxication, or whatever for that matter, which gives a kick, which gives the instant happiness, instant pleasure. The same things will cause some problem, some contamination, some deterioration in one's physical health, in one's psychological health, in one's consciousness. So one has to be very, very careful, especially we as the sadhakas, as the practitioners, as the practicing devotees. We have to be very careful in what sort of happiness are we hankering for and what sort of happiness are we deriving from various different activities. Because the mode of passion, happiness, will be instant, but then it will not stay for long, first. Second, that same thing will turn into poison and give us a lot of misery. So we have to be very careful in what are we hankering for. And as Prabhupada says, we have to make sure that we avoid or we completely abstain from breaking these four relative principles. So there's no question of meat eating. Maybe the boneless muscle in the tongue or in the mouth might feel good when there is nice preparation of meat that is cooked. But then the same thing will become poisonous towards the end because we have to face the repercussion of the sin that we have committed. Meat eating, illicit sex. So as we already discussed, inside the boundaries of marriage or outside the boundaries of marriage, if the mood is not proper, the person has to suffer. And especially when it's a premarital or extramarital affair, the person has to go through a lot of suffering. Maybe in this life or in the next, but for sure he has to. Intoxication. So again, maybe there will be a momentary kick that the person will get, but then one thing will be for sure, that little kick that he gets, throughout his life will be kicked very badly. And the next life will be kicked extremely in a very, very bad way. And gambling. Again, maybe there will be some retaliation at the intellectual platform or some retaliation for the psychological stuff. But then he has to suffer because he is playing or he is doing something which is forbidden in the scriptures. So one has to strictly follow the strugglers or the sadhakas or the spiritual practitioners. They should strictly follow these principles of no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. And at the same time, so these are the negatives that we are avoiding, and the positives that we need to accept, that is chanting 16 rounds minimum, honoring only prasadam, reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees physically, not just online, physically, and rendering various services in various ways. So in this way, when we do various things, our happiness will be on the spiritual platform and not on the material platform. And any happiness on the spiritual platform will be permanent. Otherwise, it will be temporary. So now Krishna, after speaking about the happiness in the mode of passion, he is going to speak about happiness in the mode of ignorance. So let's understand this in the next video. Hare Krishna.